If your reality feels stuck, it's not by chance. It's vibration. You may not see it, but there's an invisible field at work behind everything you experience. And if this video has found you now, it's because that field is trying to show you something. Because while you keep repeating patterns, emotions, and thoughts, your frequency keeps sending out the same signal. And if the signal doesn't change, the universe doesn't respond. Have you noticed that even when you try to do everything right, something always seems to pull you back? You dedicate yourself, seek knowledge, try to stay positive, but nothing really changes. That's because there's a hidden vibrational code operating behind the scenes of your life. And if it's out of alignment, no technique, prayer, or external effort will be enough. Thoth, the master of occult sciences and original wisdom, once said, "As the invisible vibrates, so moves the visible." In other words, everything you experience in the physical world is an exact reflection of the vibration you hold within. No matter how much you want something, if your frequency contradicts that desire, you're blocking its creation. And this is where the central point of this video begins. You're about to discover the 3 oldest and most powerful forces to raise your frequency now. But pay attention. These aren't pretty concepts or feel-good self-help quotes. They are forgotten vibrational keys, ignored by most. But when activated the right way, they completely transform your field. And if you've made it this far, know that something inside you has already begun to awaken, because there is a truth that has been hidden, and without it, nothing changes. Now, it's time to remember. The mind, just like the body, flourishes in the harmony of its invisible currents. These 3 forces are as old as the world, and almost no one uses them correctly. And that's why so many people are working too hard to achieve so little. Because deep down, there's an illusion that has been implanted in the collective consciousness. The idea that all you need to do is think positively, repeat nice phrases, visualize, and the universe, like a genie in a lamp, will give you everything you want. But that formula doesn't work. And the reason is simple. The universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to frequencies. Believing that manifesting is just imagining the car, the house, the ideal partner, or a full bank account, and waiting for the miracle to happen is the most common and most frustrating mistake for those who want to change their lives. The truth no one told you is that thought without vibration creates nothing. Words without energetic coherence have no power. Prayer without presence is just sound. The universe doesn't understand what you say. It feels what you vibrate. And if you're vibrating fear, lack, urgency, or despair, that's what the universe is going to echo back to you. You can study spirituality for years, collect courses, go to retreats, read hundreds of books, and still be vibrating low. Because accumulated knowledge without real vibrational change only serves to inflate the ego. And this is one of the greatest paradoxes. The more you believe you know, the more you might be distancing yourself from the frequency that truly transforms. The vibrational field doesn't respond to the mind that studies. It responds to the body that feels. And that's where everything changes. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you vibrate. That's the law. And it's relentless. No matter how badly you want something, if your frequency says the opposite, no technique, ritual, or decree will work. The field can't be fooled. It reads your real internal state, not what you pretend, not what you post, not what you repeat mechanically. It responds to what's truly pulsing inside you. And what most people don't realize is that, many times, the desire to manifest something comes from a frequency of lack. You want love because you feel lonely. You want money because you vibrate scarcity. You want freedom because you're trapped in survival. And as long as the origin of your desire is a low frequency, you'll just keep recreating the conditions that keep that low vibration active. That's why so many people are stuck in cycles of trial and error. They do everything, but nothing changes. Because the central point was ignored: vibration. And it's not just any vibration. These are 3 specific forces that act directly on the field and are capable of raising your frequency with real intensity, transforming your reality from the inside out. They are not trendy tools. They're not part of some new technique invented to seem spiritual. They've existed since the earliest records of humanity. They are universal forces, and they were taught by the great sages of all times, including Thoth. But over time, these forces were distorted, reduced to empty words, ready-made phrases, cute social media posts. What was once a key to transmutation became superficial self-help. And that's why most people don't even imagine the power they're neglecting every day. Now you begin to realize that the problem was never a lack of effort, willpower, or faith. The problem was the disconnection from these forces that act directly in the language the universe truly understands: vibration. And the good news is that even though they were forgotten, they never stopped being available. But activating them requires more than intention. It requires presence, truth, and a level of awareness that most people avoid. And that's why so few are truly able to manifest consistently, because almost no one sustains these forces in motion long enough. The first invisible presence that transforms everything. Because what we're talking about here isn't just any kind of energy. We're talking about primordial forces, and the first one is also the most distorted throughout history: love. But not the love you learned about in movies, soap operas, or social media. Not that love that suffers, demands, clings, or expects something in return. That's love conditioned by fear, by lack, by the culture of emotional dependency. True love looks nothing like that. The love that raises your frequency doesn't come from the need to be loved. It comes from a state of presence. It doesn't demand reciprocity. It doesn't expect anything back. It simply is. It vibrates. And when you enter that state, you connect with what Thoth called the sustaining matrix of creation. A pure, silent, and absolute field that holds everything that exists, from atoms to galaxies. This love isn't human. It's cosmic. What most people call love is actually attachment. It's disguised lack. It's disguised expectation. It's a silent contract that says, I'll give you affection if you give me security. I'll give myself to you if you don't disappoint me. But that's not love. That's emotional negotiation. That's control. And nothing born from control can raise your frequency. True love, the kind that really transforms, is selfless. It's a vibrational state where there's no separation between you and the other. It's when you love not because someone deserves it, but because that love overflows from within you, because you've become the very channel for that energy. The heart, as Thoth said, is the portal that sustains the harmony between worlds. And when that portal is activated, your vibration starts to reorganize everything around you. Have you ever noticed that certain people seem to radiate a presence that changes the whole environment? That when they enter a room, the energy shifts. That's not charisma. That's a field. And that field comes from true love, not from the desire to be accepted, praised, or admired. That field vibrates at the frequency of creation. And wherever it flows, healing happens. Things flow. Synchronicity increases. Because that's the role of love, to harmonize chaos. But for that to happen, you have to stop using love as currency. You have to let go of the idea that it's only possible to love if it's mutual. Unconditional love doesn't require the other person to change. It doesn't expect perfection. It just expresses itself. It's not stuck in the past or afraid of the future. It's anchored in the now. And it's exactly in the now that your vibration begins to rise. When you work with love, work becomes light. When you speak with love, your words become healing. When you act with love, life responds differently. And this isn't just philosophy, this is real vibration. The universe doesn't respond to your role. It responds to the frequency with which you play that role. And if you do everything out of obligation, the field vibrates obligation. But if you do it with presence, with surrender, with awareness of impact, the field opens. But before reaching that, it's necessary to understand what happens when this first force, love, is misunderstood. Because the problem was never loving too much. The real vibrational collapse starts when love turns into dependency, and this is more common than it seems. Most people never learned how to love freely. They learned to love while expecting something back. A response, approval. From a young age, they were taught that love has to be earned, that it has to be deserved, that it needs to be validated by someone else. This creates such a deep distortion that without realizing it, the person begins to trade their energy. They offer affection in exchange for security, do favors in exchange for attention, erase themselves in exchange for companionship, and call that love. But that's not love. It's lack disguised as giving. And that kind of bond, instead of raising frequency, holds you down. It traps. It muddies the field. Because love, when used as emotional currency, stops being a force of expansion and becomes a vibrational contract. And every contract made out of fear has a collapse deadline. That explains why so many relationships turn into silent wars. Why so many people become emotionally sick within bonds that started with promises of love. Because it wasn't love. It was a desperate attempt to fill an inner hole with someone else's presence. But inner holes aren't filled with external presence. They can only be transformed through awareness. When love turns into dependency, a person stops growing. They live in fear of losing the other. They reshape themselves, hide, emotionally mutilate themselves to avoid rejection. That creates a frequency of insecurity that contaminates everything, and the universe feels it and responds. Because the field doesn't judge, it reflects. At work, this shows up as excessive effort to please, a constant fear of being criticized, a feeling of never being enough. The person doesn't vibrate surrender, they vibrate tension. And where there is tension, energy blocks, projects stall, opportunities don't connect, nothing flows. In relationships, the distortion becomes even more obvious. Jealousy shows up, demands, control disguised as care. The field becomes a tangle of frustrated expectations. Love, which should expand, starts to contract. And when it contracts, it wounds. Not because the other did something wrong, but because the vibration of love was diverted from its original purpose. In finances, the pattern repeats. The person works with fear, seeks external recognition, constantly tries to prove their worth. But money, like everything in life, responds to frequency. And a mind vibrating emotional scarcity will inevitably generate material scarcity, because one affects the other. What you feel in one field spreads to all the others. This is where the real trap lies, the cycle of self-punishment. The person starts to realize something's wrong, but doesn't know what. They feel like they're not moving forward, but think they just need to do more. So they push harder, demand more of themselves, burn out, and stay stuck in the same place. Because what's blocking them isn't lack of action, it's a misaligned frequency. It's love turned into neediness. It's giving used as a survival strategy. And all this happens because they lack the energy that reorganizes internal time, that releases the cords still tying them to unresolved pain, the force that allows us to let go of what should have been released long ago. And this is where most people fail, because they can't access the force that frees time. The second force that cuts the invisible cords of the past And this force has a name. It's the second invisible presence, capable of changing your frequency so intensely that it can break a cycle that's dragged on for decades in just seconds. This force is forgiveness. But not the forgiveness they taught you in schools, churches, or etiquette manuals. That's the forgiveness of guilt, of moral obligation. What we're talking about here is something completely different. We're talking about a vibrational cut, a deep, energetic disconnection, a real cleansing. Forgiveness at this level isn't about the other person. It's about you, about what you're still carrying without realizing it, about the vibrational residue that's stuck in your field, building up, spreading, weakening your presence. Every grudge is an anchor. Every resentment is an invisible cord still tying you to an event that has already passed, but is still alive inside you. And as long as that's active, your frequency doesn't rise, because the field is intoxicated. You can say affirmations, practice gratitude, study spirituality, meditate every day, but if you don't forgive deeply, the field stays stuck. Because it doesn't matter if it happened 10 years ago or yesterday. Energy doesn't understand linear time. It only understands whether it's still active or not. And if it still hurts, if you still remember it with heaviness, if it still triggers a reaction inside you, then it's vibrating. And if it's vibrating, it's creating. That's why many people live in a repetitive pattern of self-sabotage. Every time something starts to flow, something goes wrong. It's like an internal cycle of self-punishment is running, and often it is. Because until you release the guilt over something you did or didn't do, you'll unconsciously punish yourself. You'll block things from going right. You'll sabotage yourself. Because the field is programmed to repeat unresolved pain. And that also goes for inherited guilt. Many people carry the weight of their parents' decisions, their grandparents' pain, stories of abandonment or shame that aren't even theirs, but they vibrate with them as if they were. The field doesn't distinguish whether it's personal or ancestral. If it's there, it responds. And the only way to dissolve that is with real forgiveness. Vibrational forgiveness. The kind that doesn't depend on an apology, a justification, or perfect closure. The forgiveness that cleanses because you chose to free yourself. Forgiving isn't forgetting, it's releasing. It's choosing not to carry it anymore. It's stopping the energetic feeding of something that's been consuming you from the inside. And this goes for everything. Family wounds, heartbreaks, betrayals, career frustrations, broken expectations. It even applies to things you don't fully understand yet, but you know they hurt. Because pain is the signal. And where it hurts, there's trapped energy. And where there's trapped energy, there's vibrational stagnation. Thoth taught that time is a necessary illusion. But when you access real forgiveness, that illusion fades. It's like the past reorganizes itself. Like the memories lose their weight, but keep the lesson. Because forgiveness doesn't erase the story. It transmutes the charge. It turns poison into wisdom. And only then can the new enter. That's why forgiveness is one of the 3 most powerful forces to raise your frequency now. Because it breaks the invisible ties to what's already over, but is still dragging you backward. And when that gets cut, the field expands with force. It's like opening space in your chest so that life can finally come in. Not a life based on the past, fear, or resistance, but the life that pulses here and now, free. But even with these 2 forces activated, there's still the most overlooked of all. The force that no one takes seriously, but it's the one that multiplies everything. And it changes everything, because it's the only one that expands without effort, without struggle, without demand. This 3rd force is the most ignored, the most trivialized, the most misunderstood of all. But when truly activated, it has the power to multiply everything it touches. We're talking about gratitude. But forget everything you've ever heard about it. Gratitude isn't about making lists in a notebook or repeating ready-made phrases with a lump in your throat. It's not about writing, "I'm grateful," hoping life will get better. That kind of superficial gratitude doesn't shift your frequency. At best, it organizes your mind, but it doesn't touch your field. Real gratitude is something else. It's a presence, a vibration that emerges when your being consciously recognizes everything that is alive now. True gratitude is a form of reverence, a state of openness, a direct alignment with the most abundant energy in the universe. And why does it multiply? Because where there is recognition, there is expansion. Thoth said that everything that is acknowledged vibrates more strongly and manifests across more dimensions. This is not a metaphor. It's subtle physics. When you truly give thanks, you are telling the universe, "This matters," and the universe, as a living and intelligent field, responds, "Then here is more of it." Gratitude is the vibration of conscious receiving. And everything that is consciously received expands. That's why people who vibrate deep gratitude start to notice more synchronicities, more right place, right time moments, more doors opening without effort. Because gratitude doesn't push, it doesn't demand, it doesn't wait. It simply acknowledges what already is, and in doing so, it creates the fertile ground where the new can bloom. But why do so few access this force? Because the modern mind has been programmed to complain, to compare, to want what's missing, to focus on what hasn't arrived yet. And that creates a cycle of vibrational lack. A person wakes up thinking about what they don't have, spends the day trying to get what they think they need, and goes to bed frustrated because they didn't get where they hoped to. That cycle doesn't allow for real gratitude, because it's based on absence, and where there's absence, there's no recognition. Gratitude only activates when you change your perspective, when you realize there's something valuable even in the chaos, when you see that even pain can hold wisdom, that even failure brought learning. Gratitude isn't about romanticizing suffering. It's about seeing beyond the surface. It's about recognizing the energetic value of everything that has passed through your life and shaped who you are now. And that's why this is one of the three forces that truly raise your frequency. Because it breaks the pattern of internal lack. It lifts your perception. And where there is elevation, there is release. The field starts to respond differently. People show up. Paths open. Ideas appear. Because the field is finally aligned with the vibration of real abundance. And when the three forces, love, forgiveness, and gratitude, are activated together, your frequency reorganizes with power. But then the inevitable question arises. Now that the three forces have been revealed, why do they almost never work? Why can almost no one keep these three forces active? Now that the three forces have been revealed, this is where many people get frustrated. Because even after knowing true love, practicing vibrational forgiveness, and feeling real gratitude, something seems to be missing. The energy rises, but soon collapses. And the explanation is simpler and deeper than it seems. These forces cannot be used separately. This is the invisible mistake. When love is activated without forgiveness, it becomes attachment. When forgiveness arises without gratitude, it turns into coldness. And when gratitude is practiced without love or forgiveness, it becomes performance. Three powerful forces. But if they're not unified in the same field, they become dissonant. They vibrate on different frequencies. And this fragmentation creates an unstable field, a field where light enters but doesn't stay. The secret lies in vibrational coherence. The three forces need to align like a triangle of energy, a sacred tripod that sustains conscious manifestation. If only one leg is active, the structure collapses. But when all three vibrate together, in love, in release, and in recognition, something changes deeply in the field. That's the moment when a new vibrational frequency lights up, and whoever enters that field begins to notice a radical reorganization of their life, because everything that's not in resonance starts to fall apart. Relationships, environments, habits, goals, everything that doesn't vibrate with that new coherence begins to drift away. It may seem like a loss, but in truth, it's the field purifying itself. It's the frequency rejecting what's no longer aligned with it. Thoth said that when the inner world finds harmony, the outer worlds respond with mathematical precision. This isn't punishment or chaos, it's vibrational synchronicity. You're not losing, you're purifying. But then something even more challenging happens, because when that vibration rises, a battle begins within you. It's the ego, silent, subtle, and incredibly clever. It starts acting when it feels control slipping away, and it does this in the most convincing way possible, by planting doubts, spreading fear, triggering crises. It makes you think you're going backward, but in reality, it's just trying to reclaim control over the reality that's collapsing. It's important to understand that the ego isn't evil. It's a defense mechanism. It was created to protect you from the unknown, the unpredictable, the dangerous. But as your frequency rises, the unknown becomes inevitable, and the ego panics. It doesn't know how to handle expansion, because expansion requires surrender, and surrender requires trust, and trust is the opposite of the control the ego clings to. That's why, at this stage, many people freeze. They return to old habits, rekindle relationships they had already outgrown, sabotage themselves, delay decisions. Shrink, because the ego starts screaming. It doesn't want to disappear. It wants to stay in command of the inner temple. But as Thoth said, as long as the lower self is king, the higher self remains in exile. This is the invisible sabotage that destroys many spiritual processes. The person accesses the light, feels the field open, but can't hold it. Because within them, the old still wants to exist. And this conflict causes symptoms: sudden exhaustion, irrational doubts, a desire to give up without reason. All of that is vibrational resistance. It's the field being pulled tight from the inside. But there's something that needs to be said clearly. This moment is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of progress. The ego only panics when it feels like it's losing. And if it's trying to sabotage you, it's because you're very close to something it can't control. And when the ego can no longer control, a new reality begins to open. The activation of the field and true creation. That's when your outer life begins to reorganize in a way that's as intense as it is silent. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be explained. It simply starts to happen. People drift away. Opportunities vanish. Places lose their shine. Things that once seemed important now feel empty. And the most surprising part is that you no longer feel the urge to hold on to what's leaving. It's a quiet rupture, but it's deep. A higher frequency, when vibrating consistently, creates a magnetic field that dissolves everything not vibrating at the same level. It's as if your own energy tells the universe, "This no longer serves me." And the universe listens and responds. What happens is realignment. What happens is vibrational justice. Not because you deserve punishment or reward, but because vibration doesn't lie. Thoth said, "Those who wish to dwell in the house of the gods cannot stay attached to what vibrates in the basement of consciousness." And that's exactly what manifests here. What's vibrating lower simply cannot survive in the presence of what's vibrating higher. It's vibrational physics. The new frequency becomes a filter, a selective field. And with that comes the most challenging part of transformation, the losses. But these losses are not punishment. They are releases. You don't lose a friendship. You release a bond of limitation. You don't lose a job. You let go of an identity that no longer represents you. You don't lose a love. You release a projection. What leaves at this stage is what was preventing your ascension. Yes, it's painful, but it's necessary. Because as long as the old remains, the new can't take its place. And then, something extraordinary begins to happen. When this new frequency is sustained long enough, the field activates. And it's in this moment that true creation begins. The activated field isn't a theory. It's a response. It's an invisible force that starts shaping the world around you based on what you vibrate, not on what you wish for. Real love, liberating forgiveness, conscious gratitude. These three codes, when sustained as vibration, create a reality that doesn't require effort. Because you're no longer trying to attract something, you're vibrating something. And that changes everything. That's why the three forces aren't just tools for elevation. They are creation codes. Codes that operate on subtle levels, but with concrete effects. They reprogram your field. They clear what was blocking you. They magnetize what's in tune. And when that coherence is maintained, miracles stop being exceptions. They become consequences. Thoth always taught, reality is not something you control. It's something you sustain. And everything sustained with coherence manifests. That's when the title is fulfilled. Because now you understand, in a living, not theoretical way, how these three forces can raise your frequency, and more than that, they can change your life. From the inside out, from the invisible to the concrete. And if you've made it this far, you already know. Your new reality begins when you decide to vibrate for it. If you've come this far, it's because something inside you already recognized the truth that had been asleep. So leave a comment below. I vibrate with the three forces. This phrase anchors your intention in the field and strengthens the collective energy of this awakening. And if you'd like to directly support this channel and help spread more content like this across the world, there's a link in the first pinned comment. Or, if you prefer, you can use the Thanks a Lot button here on YouTube. This not only supports the channel, but also vibrates the expansion of this message through the entire field. And don't leave the video just yet. A special piece of content was carefully selected for you to take the next step in this journey. Just click the video appearing on your screen and I'll meet you there so we can continue deepening this frequency.